We are continuing our comparison of the King James Version with most modern translation of the New Testament, in particular the NIV, the ESV, the New American Standard Bible, or the New Revised Standard Version. And as you remember, the King James Version is a literal translation, and it's based on what we call the Byzantine Greek manuscript of the New Testament, or the majority text, whereas many of these modern versions are based on what we call the Alexandrian or the minority text. And today we're going to examine two passages from the Gospel of Matthew. And again, the argument put forward by translators of this modern version of the Bible is the following: that the earliest Greek manuscripts that are in existence today are dated around 300 AD to about 350 AD. And because they're the earliest manuscript, according to them, they are closer to the original manuscripts, therefore they are more accurate. But in the previous video, we have provided three reasons that do not support this argument of the old age. First of all, we mentioned that just in the Gospel, when you compare the Codex Vaticanus and the Codex Sinaiticus, which are the base texts for the English translation of this modern version, they differ about 3036 times. So in other words, one of these two oldest manuscripts is not accurate based on that comparison. So that's the first argument. The second argument, when you take Codex Beza or Codex D, which is dated around 400 AD, which is about the same time as the oldest extant Greek manuscript of the New Testament, the Gospel text, experts confirm that it's less accurate than medieval Greek manuscript of the New Testament, which are dated maybe around the 10th century, 11th century AD, which are much more accurate than Codex Beza. So another argument to say that just because a manuscript is old doesn't mean it's more accurate or it's closer to the original. A third argument, when you take Papyrus 46, which is much older than Codex Vaticanus or Codex Sinaiticus, which again modern translation of the Bible are using, the editor of the Nessel and Allen text, okay, which is based again on the Alexandrian or the minority text. They reject Papyrus 46 over hundreds of times to say that they don't consider it accurate compared to Codex Vaticanus or Codex Sinaiticus. Yet it's much older than those earliest Greek manuscripts. So three reasons that we can put forward now. Let's take a look at these two passages from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 20, verse 16. You will notice here, verse 16 here, if you take the ESV, it says, so the last will be the first and the first last. The NASB is about the same thing, the NIV is about the same thing. But notice from the King James that the last part of this verse is missing in modern translation of the New Testament. So it says, for many be called, but few chosen. And just to tell you that this version of the Gospel of Matthew is supported by many Greek manuscripts of the Byzantine type. Let's just take a look at some of these references which support the Greek Byzantine text or the majority text. You can see here that It is included in the King James, but it's missing in this version. So most of the extant Greek manuscripts of the Gospel of Matthew support the inclusion of the second part. If you take also Codex Beza, which is Codex D, around 400 AD, it's supporting that verse as well. And this verse is also included in the Latin Vulgate, which again, remember, it's dated around 382 AD. So around the time of the oldest Greek manuscript available. If you take the Peshitta also, which is a translation of the Bible in Syriac and Aramaic around 400 AD, it includes the full verse 16. Okay, and if you consider now another verse that we can take a look at, which is in the King James, but it's missing in the NIV, ESV, New American Standard Bible, and also the New Revised Standard Version. Let's take a look at that passage and see the verse, what the verse is referring to. Verse 14, it said, "Woe unto you, scribe and Pharisees, hypocrite, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer, therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation." Okay, you condemn to hell. Basically, Jesus Christ is speaking to the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 23. Now, this is missing from most modern version. Yet, when we look at the evidence, you see that it's supported by most Greek manuscripts of the Gospel of Matthew, which are most of them of Byzantine type, even though they may be later, but they seem more accurate and closer to the original writing of the apostles. Codex W, which is Codex Washingtonianus, which is dated between 300 and 400 AD. Again, around the same time as Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus and most of these minority Alexandrian type texts. Okay, again, verse 14, which is missing from modern version, is supported by the Peshitta, which is also a translation of the Bible in Syriac around 400 AD, and it has been quoted by Saint Chrysostom. Saint Chrysostom, who is a church father who lived around in the 4th century and died around 407 AD. So we have a number of attestations that this verse 14 should be part of the original writing of the apostles. We're going to stop here. We want you to look at the evidence, check it for yourself, and we can have this conversation so we can always look at the evidence when we make inference regarding the reliability of passages in the Bible. So the age cannot be the only factor, and part of the explanation for the Alexandrian text having survived is because of climate, weather-related issue, whereas in other parts, whether it's Turkey or Israel or Greece, these part of the world have a climate that is not amenable to keeping those papyrus. Remember, the New Testament were written in papyri, paper, so it's very fragile and doesn't always resist to some type of climate or weather. So another reason that could explain why we don't have many of those Byzantine type texts earlier, but later on we still have a majority of Greek extant manuscript of the New Testament are of the Byzantine type, and most of them they agree with the King James version, which is based on that, but also they are closer to the original writing, as we have provided evidence earlier. Thank you for your attention. In the next video, we're going to take few more verses in the Gospel, and we will compare the King James with the NIV and other modern version of the Bible. May God bless you.